Join me as I dive deep into the incredible story of Deborah, the warrior prophetess of ancient Israel, and see if I can uncover how she truly shaped history and inspired generations to come. Deborah's story is a testament to faith, courage, and leadership in the face of overwhelming odds. In this video, we'll explore the fascinating details of her life, her strategic mind, and the legacy she left behind, a legacy that still resonates with us today. Deborah is a pivotal figure in the Book of Judges, a woman who embodied not just one but two remarkable roles, that of a prophetess and a warrior. These were roles typically held by men in ancient times, but Deborah defied the cultural norms of her day. Her story is one of incredible bravery, strategic thinking, and unwavering faith in God, making her a true legend in ancient Israel. She wasn't just a passive figure of wisdom, she was actively involved in the fate of her people, stepping into roles that many would have never expected a woman to fulfill. At the time, the Israelites were in a desperate state. They were facing harsh oppression from their enemies, and the situation seemed hopeless. The Israelites had fallen into a repeated cycle of sin, disobedience, and enslavement by neighboring nations, and it seemed as though they had lost their way spiritually. Their hearts were heavy with despair, and the weight of their suffering was immense. They were demoralized, their spirits broken by the relentless pressure of their enemies. It was during this dark and troubling time that they cried out to God, pleading for deliverance. Their cries for help had reached a fever pitch, and God, in His mercy, responded. But instead of sending a traditional military hero or a charismatic male leader as He had done before, God did something unexpected. This time, He sent a woman, Deborah, to deliver them. A woman who wasn't a warrior in the traditional sense, yet her presence as a leader would become the beacon of hope the Israelites so desperately needed. This was a time when patriarchy dominated the social and political structure, but God chose Deborah, defying all expectations, to lead the people of Israel to freedom. The Israelites needed a fresh perspective, a new strategy, and above all, a new kind of leader. They needed someone who could bring them together, not through sheer physical strength, but through wisdom, vision, and the ability to unite their hearts and minds. Someone who could bridge the gap between God's divine plans and the fragile human condition. And that person was Deborah. Little did the people know that this seemingly humble village judge would become the catalyst for their deliverance. Deborah was about to lead them in a battle that would forever change their fate. What made Deborah stand out was not just her position as a judge, but her role as a prophetess. She was no ordinary woman. She was handpicked by God to speak on His behalf. As a prophetess, Deborah had the extraordinary ability to hear God's voice, to discern His will, and to convey His message to the people. Her leadership wasn't based on her own strength or authority. It came directly from her connection with the divine. She was a true servant of God, acting not out of personal ambition, but out of deep humility and obedience. It was this profound spiritual connection that set her apart and made her leadership so powerful. Deborah's background remains somewhat of a mystery, but we know this. She was a natural leader. She was deeply respected by her people, and her wisdom and integrity earned her their trust. Her leadership was not about issuing commands or wielding a sword. It was about inspiring hope, building confidence, and empowering those around her to rise to the challenge. She was the embodiment of wisdom, compassion, and inner strength, and her very presence ignited courage in the hearts of the Israelites. Under her leadership, they began to believe once again that victory was possible. When Deborah received a message from God instructing her to act, she didn't hesitate or waver. She didn't question the timing or the magnitude of the task ahead of her. Instead, she obeyed with unwavering faith, and her obedience led to one of the most dramatic battles in Israel's history. The Israelites were under the oppressive rule of a Canaanite king, whose army was commanded by the ruthless Sisera. Sisera's army, equipped with 900 iron chariots, had oppressed the Israelites for years. It seemed impossible to defeat such a powerful foe, but Deborah knew that the time had come to take a stand. Deborah summoned Barak, a military commander, and together they devised a plan to confront Sisera and his army. The battle was set, and the odds were not in their favor. The enemy's forces were overwhelming, and their chariots were the most fearsome weapons of war at the time. But Deborah was undaunted, and her confidence in God's promise of victory gave the Israelites the strength they needed to fight. She knew that God was on their side, and her faith in him was unshakable. The battle was fierce, with chariots, swords, and arrows clashing in a whirlwind of chaos and bloodshed. But Deborah remained steadfast, trusting in God's plan. Her confidence was contagious, and as the Israelites fought bravely, they began to gain the upper hand. The most critical moment came when Deborah instructed Barak to launch the final attack. He hesitated, perhaps doubting the possibility of victory. But Deborah's response was both firm and inspiring. She didn't chastise him harshly. Instead, she encouraged him, saying, "I'll go with you, but because of the way you're going about this, the honor will not be yours. For the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." Her words were prophetic. In the end, it was a woman, Jael, who delivered the final blow. Sisera, the mighty general, was defeated not by a warrior in battle, but by a simple woman in her tent. Jael's act of courage secured the victory, and Deborah's faith and leadership had paved the way for this triumph. It was a victory that would resonate through the generations. The Israelites were freed from their oppression, and Deborah's place in history was solidified. Deborah's story doesn't just end with a military victory. Her actions sent ripples through history, challenging traditional views of gender roles and leadership. She proved that women could be strong, capable, and effective leaders, and that their voices mattered. Her legacy is one of empowerment and faith, showing us that true leadership comes from obedience to God, wisdom, and courage in the face of fear. So, what do you think about Deborah's legacy? Do you believe that women can make a difference in shaping history, just like Deborah did? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more insightful explorations of biblical stories. Until next time, let's strive to make wise choices and always stand for what is right.